the signal across the void in the cold emptiness of space. A faint cry for help drifted between the stars. It was weak, broken, and filled with fear. A signal no one had expected to hear, across the galactic void. It repeated again and again, a desperate SOS from a dying world. For decades, no one answered. The great empires of the galaxy heard the message but ignored it. They called it a trap, or perhaps a lost colony not worth saving. To them, the weak were meant to fade away. But deep within the Sol system, far beyond their watchful eyes, someone listened, and humanity listened closely. The message reached the Terran Deep Relay Station on the edge of Neptune's orbit. At first, the computers didn't recognize the frequency. It wasn't like any known alien code. But when the AI decoded the pattern, the words appeared on the screen. "Please help us, they are coming." The duty officer, Commander Ryan Hale, stared at the message in silence. He had seen distress calls before, but never one like this. The coordinates were from a forbidden sector, a region long abandoned after the Great War of Species. Hale reported it to Central Command, and within hours the order came from Earth itself. Activate the Deathworlder Fleet. The name alone carried a warning to the stars. For humanity had earned its title not through conquest but through survival. Their world was once called a death world, a planet so harsh it bred life that refused to die. To most alien races, humans were unpredictable, fearless and terrifyingly kind. They would fight for those who had no strength left to fight for themselves. As the fleet prepared, word spread across the hidden channels of the galaxy. Rumors whispered, "The Deathworlders are moving." In the silent halls of the Zilari Empire, the elders grew restless. The name of humanity had been buried for centuries after the galactic ban. No one dared to speak of Earth's fleets. No one dared to imagine they still existed. But deep beneath the clouds of Jupiter, in a station cloaked by plasma storms, they still waited. The fleet known as Eclipse Squadron began to awaken. Massive ships rose from the shadows, dark, sleek, armored like beasts of war. Engines that could tear holes through space hummed with life once again. In the command bridge of the flagship Vanguard, Captain Mira Solin stood watching the signal pulse on the holo display. Her eyes reflected the flickering red light of the SOS. "This call is from the Outer Rim," she said quietly. "Whoever sent it. They must have been desperate." The tactical officer looked uneasy. "Ma'am, if this is real, it means the Exovore swarm has returned," he said. Mira's voice stayed calm. "Then we'll find out." For centuries, the Exovores had been a nightmare, a machine-like species that consumed entire planets. They vanished after their last defeat, the one delivered by humanity. But if they had returned, the galaxy would tremble again. The order echoed through the fleet, engines roared to life, shields flared, and warp drives screamed against the silence of space. A single command flashed across the network. "Fleet mobilize, Operation Dawnlight." For the first time in 300 years, the Deathworlder Fleet left Sol. As the ships vanished into the dark, the old human motto appeared on every display. For the living and the lost, far away, in the ruins of the planet that sent the SOS. A faint blue flame burned among the ashes. A lone alien survivor watched the stars, praying someone would come. Her world was gone, her people hunted. Her hope fading, but then in the darkness, her scanners picked up something impossible. A distortion in the void, a burst of light. And through the clouds of dust, massive shadows appeared, ships unlike any she had seen. Their hulls glowed with faint markings that read, "T7 Terran Space Fleet." Her trembling voice whispered. The Deathworlders answered. Tears filled her eyes as she watched the human ships descend like gods of war. For the first time in her life, she believed salvation had come. Echoes of a dying world. The Deathworlder Fleet broke through the folds of space like silent thunder. Warp ripples trailed behind their ships, lighting the void in waves of blue fire. At the center of the formation, the flagship Vanguard emerged first, its armor gleaming like black glass under distant starlight. The moment they arrived, the fleet sensors began to scream. The planet below was not a world anymore. It was a graveyard once green and alive, now covered in ash and twisted metal. The cities looked melted, oceans boiled dry, and mountains split open from orbit bombardments. Mira Solin stood on the command deck, her hands tight behind her back as she stared at the destruction. Her voice came soft but heavy. "They didn't just conquer this world. They erased it." Lieutenant Oren adjusted the data feed. Picking up life signs, faint but active. Where? Mira asked. Underground caverns around the southern continent, he replied. It looks like a bunker. Mira nodded slowly. Prepare a landing team. While the fleet established orbit, drones spread across the sky like silver insects. They scanned the surface, capturing broken images, shattered towers, burnt temples, and alien bodies turned to dust. The planet's once bright capital lay in ruins, its sky dark with the smoke of forgotten fires. Each image burned into the screens aboard the Vanguard, a silent record of suffering. It was the same kind of ruin humanity had once known on Earth long ago, and that memory stirred something deep within every soldier who watched. Transmission coming through, a comms officer said suddenly. The bridge lights dimmed as the old signal played again. Static filled the room, followed by a voice, a weak, shaking, pleading. This is Counselor Vera of the Lothari Republic, if anyone can hear us. We are under attack, our people are dying, please, anyone. Then silence. Mira exhaled slowly. That message is over 3 days old. Ma'am, Oren said quietly, someone's still alive down there. Minutes later, the dropships launched from the fleet, cutting through the burning atmosphere. The sky was red, lightning cracking across black clouds. The landing zone was surrounded by ruined spires, ancient monuments now broken and half buried in ash. The ground team stepped out in full armor. Their boots sinking into gray dust, they moved in silence, weapons ready, scanners pulsing with faint blue light. Corporal Jace found the entrance first, a half-collapsed tunnel hidden beneath rubble. When they cleared the path, the metallic doors opened slowly with a deep groan. Inside, the air was heavy, metallic, and filled with the scent of burnt ozone. Rows of alien refugees lay on the ground, weak and trembling, their skin pale and eyes dull with exhaustion. When they saw the humans, fear spread among them. Many tried to hide. Some cried out in terror. One older alien woman whispered, "No, not them." The destroyers came back. Jace lowered his weapon immediately, removing his helmet so they could see his face. His tone was calm. "We are not your enemy. We came because you called for help." The crowd went silent. A young alien girl stepped forward, her arms trembling as she clutched a broken pendant shaped like a star. "You heard us?" she asked in disbelief. "Yes," Jace said. "We heard your signal across the void." She looked at him with wide, glassy eyes. "Everyone else ignored us, we thought. No one cared." Jace gave a small nod. "We care." Back aboard the Vanguard, Mira received the landing team's report. Hundreds of survivors were being moved to medical bays, but among them, the intelligence officers found something else, a fragment of data. When decoded, it showed images of the attackers, mechanical beasts with spiked armor and eyes that glowed red like burning suns. Each one branded with a symbol, a black circle with 3 jagged lines across it, the mark of the exovore swarm. Mira stared at the screen in silence. She knew those symbols. Her grandmother had fought against them centuries ago during the last Galactic War. If the exovores were back, then the galaxy was facing extinction again. The comm crackled. "Captain, the survivors want to speak with you." "Patch it through," Mira said. The holo display flickered, showing a weakened alien woman with pale skin and silver eyes. She spoke slowly. "You came for us." "Deathworlders," Mira leaned forward. "We came because you asked for help." The woman nodded weakly. "Then you must know. They're coming for you next." The bridge went silent outside the viewport. The once dead planet glowed faintly under the light of its shattered moon, and somewhere in the far reaches of space, something ancient and hungry began to stir. The Deathworlders had answered the call, but now, the real war was only beginning. The enemy in the shadows, the Deathworlder Fleet, drifted in orbit above the ruined planet, silent and watchful like predators in the dark. Inside the command bridge of the Vanguard, every monitor glowed with restless data, mapping the wreckage, the survivors, and the growing storm beyond the system. Captain Mira Solon stood before the main holo table, the image of the enemy symbol flickering in front of her eyes, 3 jagged lines across a black circle. That mark had once filled entire star maps with terror. "Any new signals?" Mira asked, her voice calm but sharp. Lieutenant Oren shook his head. "Negative, Captain. Long-range scans show nothing. But short-range sensors are unstable. It's like something is hiding right on the edge of detection." Mira's eyes narrowed. "They're watching us," she murmured. She had seen this tactic before, Centuries of human warfare had taught her that the silence before an attack was never empty. In the medical bay, the rescued aliens rested under the care of human medics. One of the survivors, the same silver-eyed woman who had spoken earlier, sat upright, her voice faint but steady. "They will not stop," she said. "The exovores consume everything, metal, stone, even life energy." Dr. Wren, the head medic, frowned. "Energy? You mean biological matter?" She shook her head weakly. "No. They eat stars." At those words, even the machines seemed to fall silent. Moments later, the ship's AI broke the quiet. "Captain, we are detecting gravitational fluctuations near the outer belt." "Show me," Mira ordered. On the holo display, a dark shape appeared. No light, no signal, no reflection, just a void that swallowed the stars around it. Then from that darkness, hundreds of red lights flickered to life. Moving in formation. "They found us," Orin whispered. "Battle stations," Mira commanded. Alarms flared through every corridor. The calm hum of the ship turned into a low growl of engines charging for war. Human soldiers ran to their stations, armored boots pounding against steel floors. The Deathworlder Fleet was born from centuries of survival on a hostile world. To them, battle was not chaos. It was rhythm, it was instinct, it was art. The enemy came fast. A swarm of black machines shaped like blades, moving through space like a living storm. Their hulls absorbed light. Their movements too smooth, too silent. The first impact came without warning. A shockwave hit the Vanguard and rattled the entire ship. "Shields holding," Orin reported, "but they're testing us." Mira nodded. "Then let's give them a test too." "Fire control," she said. "Pattern Helix 7 full spread." A moment later, the ship's cannons lit up the void, streaks of plasma and kinetic rounds cutting through the swarm. The explosions painted the dark in bursts of blue and gold. But for every enemy destroyed, 10 more appeared. "They're adapting," Orin said, his fingers flying across the console. "They're not ships," Mira replied quietly. "They're feeding." Indeed, the swarm moved closer, and their bodies glowed faintly as if absorbing the light of the blasts. The Vanguard shook again. Another impact, then another. Mira gritted her teeth. "Redirect auxiliary power to the forward shields. Push them back." The helmsman obeyed. The ship's engines screamed as the massive dreadnought surged forward, tearing through the enemy formation. Debris scattered like burning rain. And for a moment the darkness cleared in the silence that followed. The survivors aboard the medical bay felt the floor tremble beneath them. The young alien girl clutched her pendant, whispering prayers to unknown gods. Dr. Wren placed a hand on her shoulder. "Don't be afraid, child. Humanity doesn't run." She looked up at him, her voice trembling. "But they will come again, won't they?" Wren gave a small nod. "Yes, they always do." Back on the bridge, Mira stared at the wreckage floating outside. "We only destroyed a scouting arm," Orin said. "The main hive will come next." Mira's eyes flicked to the burning planet below. "We need to get the survivors to safety. Then we find where these things are hiding." Orin frowned. "Captain, that's suicide. No fleet has ever survived a hive confrontation." Mira turned to him, her expression cold but determined. "No fleet, except ours." A faint transmission crackled through the comms. It was old, weak, and filled with static, but it carried a voice. "This is Captain Varun of the Lothari Vanguard, if anyone receives this. The hive is moving toward the silent nebula. They're feeding on stars." Then the signal died. Mira looked out into the endless dark, her reflection staring back from the glass. "The silent nebula," she whispered. "That's where they're hiding." The stars outside the viewport began to flicker. One by one, something vast was moving between them, unseen, patient, waiting, and for the first time Mira felt it. The weight of being watched by something older than war itself. The Deathworlders had faced monsters before, but this enemy was different. This one did not fear humanity. It hungered for them as the fleet began to move. The faint light of the destroyed world faded behind them, and in the endless sea of stars, shadows gathered once more. The war for the galaxy had begun, and the Deathworlders were marching straight into it. The silent nebula, the Deathworlder fleet moved through the void like a storm made of steel. The wreckage of the last battle drifted behind them, glowing faintly in the starlight. But ahead lay a region of space that even the oldest star charts refused to name. They called it the Silent Nebula, a place where light vanished, sound died, and entire fleets were said to disappear without a trace. Captain Mira Solon stood at the center of the command deck, Her eyes locked on the swirling darkness ahead. "This is where the signal came from," she said quietly. "And where the exovores feed." Lieutenant Oren swallowed hard. "No navigation beacons, no comm relays, just void energy." Mira nodded. "Then we go blind," the order went out. "Engage stealth protocols, reduce emission output. Prepare recon drones." The fleet dimmed its lights, the massive ships blending into the shadows between the stars. Inside the nebula, clouds of violet dust swirled like living mist. Electrical storms danced silently across the dark horizon. Every radar ping came back broken, distorted. Like the nebula itself was alive in the medical bay. The rescued Lithari survivors huddled together as the ship's hull groaned. The young alien girl, still clutching her pendant, whispered, "This place feels wrong." Dr. Wren gave her a reassuring smile, though his own heart raced. "It's just the nebula," he said softly. "It plays tricks on the mind, but even he could feel it, a pressure in the air. A sound too low for hearing but too heavy to ignore." Back on the bridge, the fleet's scanners flickered with static. Suddenly, one of the drones vanished from the feed. "Drone 3 is gone," Oren said sharply. "No explosion, no energy spike, it just disappeared. Keep the rest at distance," Mira ordered, her voice steady. Moments later, another feed went dark, then another. "The nebula swallowed them one by one, ma'am," said the tactical officer. "We're detecting faint energy trails ahead." "Origin?" Mira asked. "Unknown, but they match exovore frequency patterns." Mira's hand tightened on the railing. "Bring us closer." As the fleet pushed deeper, the mist began to thin, revealing shapes in the darkness. At first, they looked like asteroids, jagged, silent, unmoving. But as the ship's light swept over them, metal glinted beneath the dust. They weren't asteroids at all. They were ships, thousands of them, suspended in the void, some ancient, some recent, all lifeless and cold, entire armadas frozen in the nebula's grip. And in the center of it all floated something massive, a structure the size of a moon, built from the remains of countless ships. The hive. The moment Mira saw it, her heart froze. The hive pulsed faintly with red veins of light, as if it were breathing. "It's alive," Oren whispered. "A living construct, but more like a feeding pit," Mira replied. "And it's feeding now." Suddenly, the comms exploded with static. Every screen on the bridge flickered with the same symbol, the black circle with 3 jagged lines. Then a voice, deep and mechanical, filled the ship. "Deathworlders, you come again? To fight extinction itself," Mira frowned. "Who are you?" The voice responded, "We are what your kind left behind. We are the end that remembers." The lights dimmed, and across the fleet, systems began to fail one by one. Engines flickered, shields sputtered, weapons jammed. Something inside the nebula was draining their energy. The AI shouted, "Power levels dropping, the hive is absorbing our output." "Cut all systems," Mira ordered. "Let it think we're dead." The fleet went dark, drifting silently among the corpses of fallen ships. Inside the darkness, the hive pulsed brighter. Searching, feeding, waiting, Mira stared at it through the viewport, her reflection merging with the monstrous glow outside. "We can't fight that head-on," Oren said, his voice low. "We'll be destroyed." Mira turned toward him, her expression calm but fierce. "Then we change the rules." She opened the tactical map, drawing a path between the shattered vessels. "We use the debris field for cover," she said. "Get close enough to the hive's core, then strike from inside." Oren hesitated. "That's a suicide run." Mira looked out at the nebula again, her voice quiet but unyielding. "If the galaxy is to survive, someone has to take that risk." Outside, the nebula began to move like a living storm. Lightning flared between the clouds, illuminating twisted silhouettes of alien wrecks. The Deathworlder Fleet, dark and silent, slipped through the chaos like hunters of the void. They were heading straight into the heart of the hive. And in that darkness, the fate of every living world trembled. Into the hive, the Deathworlder Fleet drifted in the black heart of the silent nebula. Their lights dimmed, their weapons silent. Only the faint red glow of the hive pulsed in the distance, casting long shadows across the broken hulls of ancient ships. Every crew member felt it, a vibration deep in their bones, a soundless heartbeat that belonged to the monster ahead. The hive was not just a weapon, it was alive, thinking, and hungry. Captain Mira Solon stood before the main display, her face illuminated by the ghostly light of the nebula. She spoke calmly, though her voice carried the weight of fire. "We enter from the northern drift, Use the wrecks as cover. Oh, heavy fire until I give the order. Lieutenant Oren nodded, his hands trembling slightly over the controls. Stealth engaged, engines minimal, following your lead. Outside, the Deathworlder ship slid silently between twisted wrecks. Their armor blending with the dark. From a distance, they looked like ghosts returning to a graveyard. The hive loomed larger with every kilometer, its surface shifting and moving like a breathing creature. Great metallic tendrils stretched outward, wrapping around dead ships, draining them of the last remnants of power. The closer they got, the clearer it became the hive wasn't built, it had grown. It had consumed thousands of ships and bound them into its own body. By the stars, Oren whispered. It's feeding on technology, biology, even energy itself. Mira's eyes stayed fixed on the target. Then we're its next meal, she said. Unless we cut its heart out first inside the Vanguard. The hangar bay buzzed with quiet determination. Strike teams armed in black armor prepared for deployment. Their faces calm but eyes burning with purpose. Corporal Jace checked his rifle and turned to his squad. We go in silent, extract whatever intelligence we can, and if we get the chance, we make it bleed. The soldiers nodded. Their fear buried under discipline. For them, humanity's creed was simple. Fight for the living. Die for the future. The dropships launched, vanishing into the thick mist that swirled around the hive. Their scanners flickered wildly, static filling their comms as the electromagnetic fields tore at their systems. Signal interference rising, one pilot reported. Switching to manual navigation, through the small viewports, they saw the hive up close. Its surface was a maze of pulsing red veins, plates shifting like muscle every few seconds. Flashes of light revealed trapped shapes within its structure. Ships, machines, even the bones of creatures long forgotten. When the first dropship made contact, its landing gear melted into the hive's surface. Fusing instantly, Jace cursed under his breath. It's absorbing us. Cut through, move fast, he shouted. The team forced the hatch open and stepped onto the living surface. It felt like walking on steel mixed with flesh, warm and vibrating with each step. They moved cautiously, weapons raised. The hive's corridors twisted in unnatural ways, metal shifting like veins closing around them. There was no sound but the low hum of something alive, something watching. Suddenly, one of the soldiers froze. Pointing ahead, movement, he whispered. Shapes began to crawl out of the walls, humanoid, but not alive. Their bodies were fused with armor, eyes glowing red, movements jerky and unnatural. Jace's pulse quickened. Contact. The first shot echoed through the corridor, plasma burning through metal and bone. The creatures screamed, a digital roar echoing in their minds like feedback. They were the consumed, once-living beings absorbed into the hive's will. Keep moving, Jace shouted. We can't stay here. Meanwhile, on the Vanguard, Mira watched the telemetry feed flicker. Captain, they've breached the hive, Oren said. But signal stability is falling fast. Patch me through, Mira ordered. Static hissed, then Jace's voice came through. Broken but fierce, Captain. You were right, this thing isn't a weapon. It's a factory, it's making them. Before Mira could respond, the feed cut off completely deep inside the hive. Jace's team reached a vast chamber. At its center was a pulsating core, a sphere of pure energy surrounded by thousands of tendrils feeding from it. Every pulse sent ripples through the walls. This is it, Jace said. The heart. One of his soldiers stepped forward. How do we destroy it? Jace raised his weapon, his voice steady. The old-fashioned way. He planted a fusion charge against the nearest conduit, the timer blinking red. But before he could set the sequence, a voice filled the chamber, cold and hollow. You think you can kill hunger? It said. The walls began to move, forming faces, human faces, alien faces, all crying out in pain. Jace's hand shook, but he didn't stop. He pressed the detonator, whispering, "For Earth." The explosion ripped through the hive's interior, waves of red light bursting outward. The shockwave hit the Vanguard, throwing the ship off course. Massive energy spike. Oren shouted, "The hive is collapsing." Mira's voice cut through the chaos. "Get us clear now." The fleet pulled back, engines roaring. Behind them, the hive began to implode, folding in on itself like a dying star. Streams of molten metal and shattered ships spiraled into the void. In the aftermath, silence filled the nebula. Then, one by one, the lights of the Deathworlder Fleet flickered back on. They had survived, but in the distance, Beyond the collapsing debris, something moved, and a faint, new signal pulsing from deep space. Mira stared at it, her heart heavy. "They're not done," she whispered. This was only one hive. The stars shimmered around them. Humanity had struck back, but the war for existence had just begun. The stars remember. The silent nebula was quiet once again. Where the monstrous hive had stood, only drifting debris and glowing dust remained. The Deathworlder Fleet hovered on the edge of the storm. Engines dimmed, weapons cooling. They had survived. But the silence that followed was not victory. It was warning. Inside the Vanguard, the command deck was bathed in dim blue light. Captain Mira Solon stood alone at the viewport, watching fragments of alien metal drift through the void. Each piece glowed faintly. Fading like embers after a great fire, she whispered softly. How many worlds were consumed before this one fell? Behind her, Lieutenant Oren entered quietly, his armor still scorched from the last battle. "Damage reports are in," he said. "We lost 2 ships, the Aegis and the Horizon." Mira's jaw tightened. "And the strike team?" Oren hesitated. "No survivors." For a long moment, Mira said nothing. Her reflection in the glass looked like a ghost staring back from another world. "They knew what they were walking into," she said finally. "And they didn't hesitate." Oren nodded slowly. "Because they believed in something, Captain. They believed humanity still mattered." The comm systems crackled suddenly. "Ma'am, incoming transmission from Earth Command," a voice reported. "Patch it through," Mira replied, turning toward the main screen. A holographic figure appeared, Admiral Reeve, his uniform sharp, his expression carved from steel. "Mira," he said, his tone grave. "We've received data from your mission. The hive was only one of many." Mira's brow furrowed. "How many?" Reeve's image flickered as he spoke. "We've detected similar energy signatures across 6 sectors, some near major colonies," Oren muttered under his breath. 6 hives. Mira's voice cut in, calm but deadly. "Then the war has already begun," Admiral Reeve continued. "We're recalling the fleet to Luna Base for refit and coordination. The Council wants full preparation for interstellar conflict." But Mira's eyes narrowed. "Sir, with respect, retreating now gives them time to grow," Reeve sighed. "This isn't retreat, Captain, it's survival. Humanity can't fight 6 hives alone." Mira's gaze hardened. "We won't be alone." Reeve raised an eyebrow. "You mean the other races?" "They abandoned us once, Mira. They won't come back." Her reply was quiet but sharp. "Then they'll remember why they feared us." After the transmission ended, the bridge fell silent again. Outside, lightning rippled through the last remnants of the nebula. Like the stars themselves were whispering warnings. Mira turned to her crew. "Prepare a subspace broadcast." Oren blinked. "To who?" "To everyone," Mira said, her tone firm. "To every surviving world, every empire that still breathes." She faced the hollow recorder, the flickering light reflecting in her eyes. "This is Captain Mira Solon of the Deathworlder Fleet," she began. 3 days ago, we answered a call for help from the Lithari Republic. We destroyed 1 hive, but we discovered many more." Her voice grew colder, sharper. "The enemy is not just a threat to one race. It is a plague that consumes all life, and it has already begun feeding again." She paused, her next words heavy with resolve. "Humanity was once called the most dangerous species in the galaxy, because we never stop fighting. Because when others run, we rise, and because we remember every scream that was ignored." She leaned forward slightly, her voice soft but unyielding. "The stars remember those who stand for others. If no one else will answer the call, then humanity will." The transmission spread across the void, bouncing between forgotten satellites and abandoned relay stations on distant worlds. Alien eyes looked up as the old Terran signal flared across their skies. Many did not believe it at first, some trembled in fear, remembering the wars of long ago, but others, the broken, the desperate, the hunted, felt something they had not known in generations. Hope in the medical bay. The young Lithari girl who had survived the hive stood by the viewport. She watched the stars shimmer and whispered, "They came for us when no one else did." Dr. Wren smiled faintly beside her. "That's what humans do, child. They come when the galaxy is given up." Later, as the fleet began its slow return to Seoul, the stars around them seemed to glow brighter. It was as if the galaxy itself was awakening. But far beyond, in the black between galaxies, something ancient stirred. New signals pulsed. Not distress calls, but responses the hives were awakening, calling to one another. And in the endless dark, the faint echo of a single human transmission lingered like a heartbeat. The stars remembered, and they were listening. The war that awoke the galaxy. The Deathworlder Fleet cut through the darkness of space like a silent storm returning home. Every ship carried the scars of the battle inside the silent nebula, yet their engines still burned bright. Each glowing trail they left behind was a promise that humanity would not fall quietly. Captain Mira Solon stood at the center of the Vanguard's command deck, her reflection shimmering against the stars. Her eyes were tired but alive, filled with the fire of something greater than fear. On the long journey back to Sol, the fleet intercepted dozens of incoming transmissions. At first, they were static-filled messages, fragments of alien voices filled with confusion and disbelief. Then came the first response that mattered. "This is Admiral Tavarin of the Vec Coalition," a deep alien voice said through the comm. "Your broadcast reached us, Captain Solon. We thought the Deathworlders were extinct." Mira smiled faintly. "Extinct species don't answer distress calls." The alien paused, his tone shifting from arrogance to respect. "Perhaps it is time we remembered who you are." Word of the human broadcast spread faster than light itself. Across the galaxy, old enemies and forgotten allies began to stir. The proud kingdoms that had ignored the first SOS now faced the same threat creeping toward their borders. World after world reported the same thing, stars dimming, space itself trembling as the hives awoke. The exovores were no longer hiding, they were expanding, building, feeding. When the fleet reached Luna Base, Earth's moon glowed with life again. The surface was no longer silent rock. It had become the beating heart of humanity's strength. Dozens of dreadnoughts floated above the base, shipyards blazing with light, engineers working around the clock. Humanity had prepared for this day long ago. In secret, after the Galactic ban, they had hidden their fleets, their technology, and their rage. Now the sleeping giant had risen. Mira met with Admiral Reeve and the Council inside the War Dome, a vast chamber overlooking Earth below them. The blue planet shimmered in the dark like a jewel among ashes. Reeve looked at her with quiet pride. "Your message did what no treaty ever could, Captain. The galaxy is listening." Mira's voice was calm. "Then we speak as one, not as conquerors, but as guardians." The counselors nodded, but one of them, an older woman with sharp eyes, leaned forward. "The hives are not just machines," she said softly. "Our scientists analyze the data from your mission, the core structures. They share human DNA." The room fell silent. Mira froze. "What did you say?" The woman continued. "The exovores were not born. They were made, centuries ago during the first AI wars. An experimental human weapon escaped containment. It evolved, it learned to feed," Orin whispered. "So they are our creation." Mira's voice darkened. "Then this is our responsibility." Outside, alarms flared across Luna Base. "Multiple warp signatures detected," a technician shouted. "They're here." The council rushed to the observation deck, and through the glass they saw it, a wave of black shadows emerging from the void. The exovore hives had found Earth without hesitation. Mira turned toward the comms officer. "Sound the alert across the fleet, every ship to defensive formation. All hands battle ready." Reeve's voice echoed through the hall. "This is it. Humanity stands today not for victory, but for the right of every living thing to exist." The stars lit up with war. The first salvo roared from Earth's orbit, streaks of plasma and kinetic fire cutting through the darkness. The hives swarmed forward, their colossal forms blotting out constellations. For every ship that fell, 10 more rose. The battle became a storm of light and death, the kind that would echo in legends for 1,000 years. Inside the Vanguard, Mira's command crew fought in silence. Each move precise, every breath measured. The ship shook violently as energy blasts slammed into its shields. "Shields at 40%, Orin reported. "We can't hold much longer." Mira gritted her teeth. "Then we don't hold while we strike." She pointed toward the largest hive at the center of the enemy formation. "Bring the Ragnarok cannon online." The helmsman hesitated. "Captain, that weapon's unstable." Mira smiled faintly. "So are we." The Vanguard's hull glowed white-hot as the cannon charged, pulling power from every system. The ship trembled, groaning like a living thing on the edge of breaking. Mira closed her eyes for a moment, whispering, "For the living and the lost." Then she gave the order. "Fire!" The cannon unleashed a beam so bright it split the darkness. It tore through the hive's core, igniting its energy chambers. The explosion rippled across space like a dying sun, consuming everything in its path. The shockwave slammed into the fleet, hurling ships aside, but the hive was gone. The others hesitated, their perfect formations breaking for the first time. As the light faded, Mira's ship drifted, its engines silent. Its hull cracked but intact, Orin coughed, smoke filling the air. Did we do it? Mira looked out at the fading glow of the destroyed hive. For now, she said quietly, but this was only the beginning. On distant worlds, alien races watched the broadcast of the battle. For the first time, they saw Deathworlders not as monsters, but as saviors. Old grudges began to fade, replaced by something new, unity across the stars. 1,000 voices whispered the same words. Humanity fights for us. As the damaged fleet turned back toward Earth, the stars above seemed brighter. The galaxy had been silent for too long, but now it remembered the fire of the Deathworlders. Mira Solon stood at the viewport one last time, her eyes fixed on the horizon of infinity. Let them come, she whispered. The stars have awakened, and so have we. And somewhere, in the endless dark, the galaxy held its breath, because the war that had awoken the stars had only just begun.